All right, tonight we have Jeff Bohr, who we've had many times in the past. And Jeff is going to cover Yosemite and iOS 8 tips and tricks. And I always encourage Jeff to talk a little bit about himself and his business before he gets going.
Yeah, hello everyone. For those of you who haven't met me before, tonight we're going to cover some tips and tricks. If you've installed Yosemite and iOS 8 on either your Mac computer or your iPad or iOS device, then this will cover some of the kind of off-the-road things that will help you get a little more out of the operating systems than you might come across in daily use. A little bit about myself. I started using Apple computers in 1986. This was before the Apple Store, so back then, if you remember, you had to call Apple and order it, and a week or 10 days later, they'd ship you a computer. If anything went wrong at that point, you'd have to put it in the original box, mail it back, and then wait for the return. So that's when I kind of started tinkering around. And in 2004, I turned my kind of hobby into a full-time business. So my company is called Naples. This is all I do. I'm an Apple Certified Support Professional, so every year I go and take classes and exams that are Apple provided in order to get certified by Apple. So I just did, 2 weeks ago, did my 10.9 certification. The current certification for Yosemite, the classes haven't even been offered yet. So probably in the spring I'll actually be able to start on that. So that keeps me on par with the guys if you've ever been to the Apple Store at the Genius Bar in the back of the store. And if you've ever been to the Waterside Apple Store, I make house calls and they're stuck behind there. So that's where my business comes from. So I provide on-site service and training. And my website is naplesmachealth.com. I have some of my business cards on the back table if you want to grab one with my email and contact information.
Jeff, can you mention what the Apple is trying to do now to keep you out of the store?
The Apple Store, if you've been online lately, you used to be able to go online pretty easily and go to Waterside and hit schedule a visit. What they've been trying to do is provide more online support. So they'll give you options that you can either schedule a callback, and the callbacks in my experience have been quick. Like if you put in your phone number and say, I'd like a callback soon, your phone will ring almost as soon as you click the enter button. And you'll actually be talking to a live person who will attempt to walk you through the issue that you're having, which might save you a trip to the Genius Bar. So they're going to that kind of live telephone support, and I haven't seen anything that's been fee-based yet. It's just a free call that they'll kind of do. So that's been something they've started initiating in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, part of that, though, is they ask you for your serial number. And if they see that you're out of Apple Care or out of warranty, then we did that the other day, and it says $29.95. But
For a call.
yeah, but suppose you just want them to install something. You know that it can't be done over the phone. And do you have to pay it? Do they do your credit card, or can you talk to somebody and say, look, I'm willing to pay, but I need to come in because we can't do this on the phone?
I would guess that if they didn't actually have to try to walk you through something, then they wouldn't charge you. But I don't know. But I would think that they would just say, well, let me schedule an appointment or type this code into the website to be able to get to the calendar. Yeah, that would be, you'd almost have to find someone that had tried it. But I don't think they would charge you to get the answer that you need to take it in physically.
Right. Thank you.
But you wouldn't know until you tried and until we hear about a successful.
Hey Jeff, last week I called, I tried without any results to set up an appointment at the Genius Bar. The only option that I could find was to arrange for a telephone call. And it was really very simple, and nothing was said about charging. Through the website of the Apple Store, Waterside Shops, I got in touch with whoever it was at the number that they gave, which I registered and made an appointment for online. I was told it would be about a 2-minute limited time period before I got the call back. Within 2 minutes I got a call. The guy talked me through everything, solved the problem, and thank you very much. That was it. No problem.
So it saved you a trip.
Yeah, but I had to set it up through the Apple Store webpage.
Okay, yeah, and that's the experience I've had. You don't have to anyone like at Waterside per se, but you will be able to set it up that way.
But your device was not out of warranty, right, Mike?
No, I mean, yeah, it was out warranty by more than a year. They didn't ask for any kind of serial number, no form of identification. They just, hello, this is a representative from Apple. What's your problem? I told them what the problem was. They talked me through it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. That was it.
To that point, because of the situation, has anybody been over to Waterside to see if that has alleviated some of the backlog of the people over at the
I
Genius
doubt
Bar?
it. I don't think there's anything that would alleviate that,
Okay.
unless they open an Apple store, you know, a
Downtown?
block away or something, yeah.
Yeah,
so.
okay.
No, I think it's a great move on their part, because I think to go to a Genius Bar is sometimes a disappointing experience for a customer because of all the crowds and the insanity in the store. So I think this is a customer-friendly approach. And, I'm kind of surprised because I thought that they always, you'd always want to get people into the store so they would buy merchandise possibly while they were there. But it's a reverse psychology now because I think the customer will be much happier if in some cases they don't go to the store.
Yeah.
Especially in Naples. I mean, I haven't set foot in the Waterside store in probably 2 years. If I have to go, I go up to Coconut Point where you can actually park and walk in, and it's not a zoo. So that's more advice if you need to go to a store. That's a lot easier. So OS X Yosemite is actually system 10.10, but they're getting into the names because 10.10 is still really 10.1, which is a decade ago. But it's a free update on the Mac App Store. You can actually update from anything from 10.68, 10.7, 10.8, or 10.9 to the newest version. This is the screen that you'll see when you go to the App Store, and there will be a button that says Download. Then you'll be prompted to put in your Apple ID and password to verify the ownership. But some of the stuff it does listed here, it brings a lot better integration with the iOS, redesign to the Finder and the interface that you're used to seeing. First, I'll go over how Yosemite has changed, some of the aspects of OS X that you can change with Yosemite, and then we'll go over some preferences that you can customize, and then we'll move into iOS 8, which is the new operating system for your iPhones and iPads and iPods. So one of the options you'll have with Yosemite is a dark menu bar and dock. So at the bottom, do you see the two menu bars that say Keynote? You now actually have a choice to choose a darker option, which might be better in some circumstances. I personally don't prefer it because on my iMac at my office, my menu bar at the top is full of icons. I've got all these preferences installed, so when you go to dark, it actually kind of blinks those out. Some of them aren't legible. So, but you do have that option, and where you go to is you go to System Preferences, General. You can toggle this on and off. Another change with Yosemite is your default web browser is now controlled through System Preferences, where it used to be controlled through Safari Preferences. So you would go to Safari Preferences and change your default browser if you wanted to use Firefox or Chrome or Opera, for example. Now you'll choose it directly from the Finder menu under the General tab.
Oh, let me just say one thing. Everything that Jeff is covering tonight, if you belong to the discussion group, I'll send out a PDF within the next 24 hours.
Yes, you'll be able to look at this. I wouldn't advise printing it unless you have an unlimited supply of ink, but you can at least view it on your computer. Now the dashboard's old overlay mode is back. So if you remember when the dashboard was first introduced, if you go to System Preferences, Mission Control, you can actually have the dashboard appear over your desktop instead of a different space. So when you go to System Preferences under Mission Control, you'll be able to choose the dashboard as an overlay. Let me stop that before it drives someone crazy. Rather than a space. So instead of swiping to the left on a trackpad to get to the dashboard, you can actually have it just kind of appear on top of your desktop. So the green, you have the red, yellow, and green dots at the top of each Finder window now, or each application window. And If you've noticed Yosemite, when you hit the green dot, it goes into full screen mode, which a lot of people, it irritates. It irritates me a little bit because then you have to go all the way to the top to get out of it. But the trick is, if you option click the button, so the green button there, and here I have my mode turned on graphite so it looks gray. But if you, do you see how it turns into a plus sign? Let me do that again. So that mode, if you hold the option key, it will actually just do the zoom function that the green button used to do. So when you used to hit the green button, it would toggle between a larger size and a smaller size. If you hold the option key while you click it, it will do that. If you don't hold the option key, it's automatically going to go to full screen mode. So that's one of the differences. There's a new batch renaming option in the Finder. So if you had a group of pictures from a cruise, and you had, 4 dozen pictures, but they were all, named by the camera DSC 52, DSC 53, you could actually select the group of photos. You'll see on the right, there's a choice that says rename 10 items. You'll then be presented with a rename box. You can then customize text. You can say, 2014 cruise, Royal Caribbean ship, whatever. Put a starting number, and then it will automatically add the prefix that you choose along with the numerals that you choose. And you can specify a lot of choices here. Replace text, add text format.
That's a right click.
That's a right click on a group of items. So the same right click where you can create a new folder with the selection that's been available for a while now with Mavericks. You'll also have a rename option about 2/3 of the way down. There was a program, I don't know if anyone's used it, called A Better Finder Rename. There was a third-party program that I've used for years that would let you do this, but you'd have to have this app for it, and now they built it into the Finder. So that's a new feature. Now this is something new. The preview panel, if you were in column view, you would always see a little preview of an icon over on the right, but only in column view. Now, whether you're in icon view or list view, you can turn on a preview panel. And the way you do that is you go under View, Show Preview, or hit Shift-Command-P. So you actually have a preview pane visible on the right of any type of view now. And if you've ever used AirDrop between like a phone and another phone, now if you're at home and you're on your own network and you're signed into iCloud on your computer and your device, you'll actually be able to AirDrop without having to be on the other device and say accept the file like you would if you were AirDropping between the two devices normally. So what will happen is, in the top right of your Finder window, you'll see a notification that says you're getting a file from Jeff's phone, and you can choose to open it from that window. If you miss that notification, all AirDrop files go right to your downloads folder. So for this, when I was coming up with this presentation for the iOS 8 part, I was taking screenshots on my phone, AirDropping them to my computer. I would open my downloads folder and then insert them into Keynote.
Because that little icon that comes up says open is only about a nanosecond.
Yeah, it blinks away, so.
So yeah, I couldn't figure it out the first 3 times. I kept resending it. So that's good to know where it's...
Yeah, they automatically go to your downloads folder, and if you sort it chronologically, they'll be at the top. Now, some Safari tips. If you've noticed, after you install Yosemite, if you go to macworld.com, which is now defunct, but if you go to a website, cnn.com, and you click on a story about something, it used to be in the menu bar you would see cnn.com/US News/election results/Virginia, da-da-da-da-da. Well, now they've simplified it, and no matter what page you're on, it'll just say CNN at the top, cnn.com. So they kind of hide the whole address. If you want to see that again, you go to Safari Preferences, you go to the Advanced tab over on the right, at the far end of that, and you'll be able to say, Show Full Website Address. Now you have a new choice for a...
There's a question.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you can also just click on that menu bar, click on it, and it'll fill in the rest of the page.
But yeah, if you click on the title as if you're going to go to another site or do a Google search, it will expand it at that point.
Is that true for the person who you send a link to?
If you email the page, they'll get the full link.
Okay.
It's just a cosmetic
Yeah, okay.
appearance thing. So you'll now have an option choosing a search engine directly from the preferences. Your choices will be Yahoo and Bing, and a search engine called DuckDuckGo. If you're not familiar with that, it's a third-party search engine, but they don't keep any history. They don't provide any cookies. So it's a very clean, trackless search engine that there's no history, there's no cookies, no data collected about you when you're browsing using DuckDuckGo or searching. Now Spotlight, however, if you do a Spotlight search, the default browser is still Bing for Spotlight searches, and you can't change that. So when you do a Spotlight search, if web-based results come up, they're using Bing search engine, and there's no preference to disable that. So that's not customizable.
What was that other,
Pardon me?
what was that other search engine?
DuckDuckGo.
Oh, DuckDuckGo is the third choice there, or the fourth choice. And that's an option now. And it's also an option on your iPhone or iPad devices.
My sense is DuckDuckGo doesn't bring back as many focused answers as the others.
Yeah, I've tested it out, and it's not as refined as some of the others. And then once you get to the sites, those sites, if you search DuckDuckGo for Amazon, Amazon's going to keep cookies and everything, but your searches won't be a result. Now, if you open a new Safari window, you've probably seen the iOS type menu of the favorites. So all your favorites will actually be listed as little icons in this, and then when you open a new Safari window, if you have folders, the folders will actually be listed in the grid there, and you can click on a folder and open it to see the restaurant sites or the golf clubs or whatever you have listed within there to navigate to a site quickly. Some of the tips: if you command click a website, that'll open in a new tab, which will now stay in the background. It used to sometimes open in the front. The shift click will download websites. When you're in the panel of websites, which I'll be able to show you in a moment, you can drag like you used to be able to drag items out of the dock, you can also drag a website out of there and remove it from your favorites instantly. And if there are folders, you can actually navigate through those. Now, this is a little different about Safari. When you go to the Safari menu and you choose the Clear History of Website Data button, you'll actually be able to specify where it says the last hour over there. You'll be able to say today and yesterday, all history. So if you're doing some Christmas shopping or something, you want someone to find out about it, you can go in and say, clear the last 2 days and only the last 2 days. So that's a little different than what they had before. Now, markup is a new feature in Mail. So when you're either sending or replying to a message with an attachment that's either like a JPEG or an image file or a PDF in Mail, you'll be able to click on this little icon in the corner. Do you see above the preview icon? This is a document I made called Scanning with Preview. And above the preview icon, there's a little down arrow, a little menu. When you click that, that will bring up a menu like this. Whoops. So you'll get a little preview style annotations menu. So if you've used the preview annotations menu, you'll actually be able to draw lines, insert shapes. When you insert shapes, it's going to tell you that you're not changing the actual document behind it. You're just kind of putting these documents on top of it, these markups. But then when you actually send this, so you type in your little edits here and hit done, it will actually modify the attachment and the recipient will get it with your markups. And they're kind of locked in place. Like if I send this to George, George can't remove those. So they're part of the document at that point.
Jeff, question?
Yes?
In preview, you used to be able to, like, hold an option key and get an oval to always be a circle.
Mm-hmm.
I've not found the equivalent.
You can, there is a way to do that where to form it to a perfect circle. I thought it was, it's not still the option key?
Not for me at least.
There is a way to do that. We'll test that because, yeah, I remember it was the option key before, so I'm not sure, but there is a way to do that, and we'll figure that out, yeah. Now, the new calendar app, if you start, I have a lot, in my calendar, since I provide training, I have a lot of clients that are repeat. The nice thing about the calendar app now is it has a predictive feature where if I start typing in a person's name, it will automatically fill in their address in the location field. It will even show you a little map of where the appointment is, which will then tie into your iPhone and iOS device, and when you swipe down from the top and look at your Today view, it'll actually give you some information like you must leave in 15 minutes to get to your next appointment because it knows where you are and it knows where you're going. So if you like all that information, that's very handy. Flyover tours are available in Maps, and this works on the iOS device as well. So when you go to a larger city and the group is expanding, you'll be able to find a city, click its name, and there will be a button that says Flyover Tour that you can select. And I'll show you how that looks in a few minutes on the iOS. Now another thing you can do, and when you go to in Preview, has anyone ever used the signature tool in Preview where you can take a picture of your signature and insert it into documents that are sent to you? Well, now they have an option where you can actually use your trackpad on your device or your physical trackpad and kind of do your signature with your finger. But when I was testing this, if I wanted to lift my finger, it doesn't pick up the lift, and it's really messy. So I don't know if I don't think it was my system. I tried it on my trackpad on this and my trackpad. I couldn't do a clean signature using the finger on the trackpad, but supposedly it's supposed to be able to be done.
Can you use an iPad stylus?
You probably could, and I didn't try that, but that might help. But when I picked up my finger to start my last name,
Right.
it actually just drew a line. So I couldn't get around that. So if anybody figures that out, please post it, because it wasn't very clean.
Somebody over here says you should be a doctor.
Oh, but yeah, as messy as it was, I should have been, yeah. So there's a little more detailed view of your iCloud space used in Yosemite. So when you go to the iCloud option and you look down at the bottom and you hover, you'll actually see a breakdown of how much video, photos, how much space, photos and mail are taking up, whereas before you'd have to go into Manage and it would show you that information. So you can see it right from the main iCloud preferences window. Now with features like handoff and iCloud tabs that are made in Safari, you may want to switch back to Safari. Like I was using Google Chrome for the past couple of years as my primary browser. I just switched back to Safari because of these features. And they made it a lot easier if you have been using another browser. If you want to go back to Safari, under the File menu and you go to Import, you can actually import directly from Google Chrome or Firefox. Where it used to be, you would have to go into Firefox or Chrome, export the bookmarks to your desktop or something, and then go back to Safari and go to File, Import Bookmarks. Now they've inserted the code that they can communicate directly with the Chrome and Firefox apps. So if you've been using Firefox or Chrome and you want to try Safari again, it makes it very easy to sync your bookmarks. And at the bottom, you can still bring in a bookmarks HTML file if you've exported it that way.
Jeff?
Yes?
Can you use the backspace key to go back a page in Safari? They took that out on the last version.
See, let me test it. That's something I haven't tried.
Or the delete key, whatever.
So these are the little favorites they're kind of showing you. I'm going to guess it down because my other desktop was too messy, as George pointed out. So this is kind of a clean side. So now I just have the Apple, the ones they gave you. But that's how your own favorites and bookmarks would show up when you click in the top menu bar of Safari. But let's see, so the back arrow, command back?
No, I used to just use the delete key and go back.
No, that doesn't work.
Well, that's your first page, so.
Oh, right, let me get
Well, you
into,
have to go down.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to show us.
Yeah, so I'm on this little-
Just go to the page, click one of the links.
oh, maybe I have to click start using Safari.
You want my,
I'm not.
Oh, yeah, right, you can't show it, because for some reason, the wireless is not working in here, this is the first.
Okay, so I'm on some kind of network. It's connecting my phone to my computer, but I don't think I'm online.
Since this morning, the networks that our club has paid for and installed the equipment and all that, and the library maintains, they have not been working. They
Oh,
were
okay.
working on it today, I couldn't see Marilyn, I don't know what the status is, but we apologize for that.
So yeah, we can't test that, but I'll test that, and because that I haven't tried. So another difference in Yosemite, you'll be able to install OS X updates, which is one of the check marks when you go to App Store Preferences. So it used to be that you couldn't have the computer install 10.1, 10.2, 10.3 for you. Now, if you check the box that says Install OS X Updates, you'll be able to see that it will install updates, incremental updates to the OS. So that's something new. Another thing that's new is if you click on the Apple menu, next to the App Store, there will be a little number that says 2 new or 3 new if you have pending updates that you haven't seen. There will also be a number on the app icon if you have it in your dock still. But if you just click on the Apple menu, you'll see a little 1 new, 2 new, 3 new if you have app updates that are available from Apple that haven't been installed yet.
do you recommend that they allow your computer to automatically update?
I personally do it. I mean, that's a preference. I've never been. My experience is that all this stuff is beta tested by many people for a relatively good period of time before they ever release an update to the general public. So I've never been hesitant to update, but that's a preference. If you're hesitant about that, by no means check that box. I personally do. So.
Does that only work if you're on as an administrator account? If you're on as a user that don't have update privileges, would that still work?
I don't think, well, let's see, if I'm on, let me check, because I can look at system preferences on this one. Yeah, see, since I'm not an administrator,
Yeah.
I would have to actually log in, so all those options are grayed out, so if you're not the administrator, you couldn't do that.
So Jeff, when you get a notification that seems to say, now or later or tomorrow, you can't just say you don't want to do it. Or if you check tomorrow, will it automatically install, or will you get the same thing?
No, in that case, it'll prompt you. It'll keep prompting you.
Again.
Yeah, so if you say tomorrow, the box will come up tomorrow, and then you can say tomorrow again,
Yeah.
and keep putting it off. Yeah, there's no way. Now, if you uncheck automatically check for updates, you wouldn't even see that little prompt. So if you just turn this off and only check for updates manually,
Yeah.
but then you won't, you could get behind pretty quickly.
Right.
Now, this is a repeat, but again, the preview pane is now available in any window that you're in by going to View, Show Preview. So this is an icon view on the left, and then there's a preview of a selected photo on the right.
So how does that differ from selecting a file and then pressing the space bar on an older?
Well, that's called Quick Look. So Quick Look will give you a preview of the document in a little window that
Right.
rises up,
How is this different?
because it shows you the actual Quick Look preview directly in the right pane. Prior to this, you'd only see that preview pane in the column view. When you got to the column, the last entry in the column, you'd see a little icon that looked like the document or photo. Whereas now you can choose to turn that last column showing the preview on all the time in different views. So in icon view or list view, you can still get a preview now.
Thank you.
And you can still do Quick Look. So if you do select the file in the Finder and tap the space bar, it'll actually bring it up above all this and center it on the screen as a, whether it's a word processing, a PDF, a JPEG. So any documents that you select and use Quick Look, it will show you an actual preview of the document on the screen. Now, one thing you might have noticed, if these next two slides will show you, if you've installed Yosemite and you also have iOS 8 on your phone, you might have noticed that one day your phone is charging in the kitchen and you're using your iPad in the next room and your phone rings and there's an option on your iPad to answer it. So that's now an option that you can make and receive phone calls from your computer, if it's running Yosemite, and or your iPad or iPod running iOS 8, if your phone is in the vicinity. So this doesn't work if your phone is in the car, probably in the garage, because it has to have a connection to your phone on the Wi-Fi network. Now, one of the things that you can do if you use FaceTime, you can actually change the ringtone for FaceTime. So just like you can change the ringtones for certain people on your phone, and you can have your mom be a certain ringtone, your brother be another ringtone, you can change the ringtones on FaceTime on your computer. And when you go to the FaceTime preferences, you'll go to there's a ringtone list down at the bottom, and you'll have a choice of all these ringtones that were the original ringtones on the phone. Now, to make and receive phone calls with your Mac, on the left, when you go into Settings on your phone, go into FaceTime on your iOS device, your phone, and what you'll want to do is toggle on iPhone cellular calls, as shown here, the second choice. So if you have that on, then you'll be able to receive and make phone calls from your computer and or your iPad, and probably an iPod. It's kind of small, but you can probably do it with that. On the right, you'll see you can initiate calls from FaceTime. The way you would do that is you can go into the top window is a FaceTime window, and I have my wife listed under AAA, so I can either enter her phone number, or when you click on the telephone icon to the right next to the camera, you have a choice of call using my iPhone to her phone number. So that's how it would initiate a call. If you're at your computer and someone is calling you, you'll see the second box there. So my wife is calling me, and I can either choose to accept or decline, and this was on my computer screen, and it will also show up on your iPad screen. So if you're looking at your iPad and your phone's in the next room, someone calls, you can answer it on your iPad. The third window is showing what a call looks like in progress. So if I'm talking to my wife via my computer, it'll use the speaker and microphone as a speakerphone. Then you'll get a little timer and a little grid, a little graph showing the volume and the intensity of the talk. But you would do the same thing from your iPad if you wanted to initiate a phone call, open FaceTime, and then type in a phone number or go to a person, and when you tap on the FaceTime audio button, you'll also have the chance to call their cell phone, but only if your phone is on the same Wi-Fi network and close enough to where it can see the device you're using.
Do you have to do this through your iPhone? Like if you're on Comcast and you have phone service coming through them, can you either do it that way? Do you know?
Well, since it uses your iPhone's cell connection, I don't think it would have anything to do with your Comcast phone line.
Oh, okay.
Unless you had your phone line forwarded or something, but yeah, it's totally separate. The iPhone has to be on the same Wi-Fi network as your device, but at the same time, it's a phone, so it can connect to AT&T and make the phone call.
I just loaded my the Yosemite yesterday. Now, when my phone goes off, everything goes off. My computer, my iPad. Does that mean that this is intact? Is that signify that I can make calls now?
Yes. Yeah, because they'll all ring. They all make a noise.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to turn it off, you just turn iPhone cellular calls off on your phone. That disables the other devices from being able to send and receive. I mean, some people might not want that feature. You know, if you're getting noises from all over the house when the phone rings, that might not be a good thing. I think it's pretty handy, you know, because I'm not always where my phone is. So it's something neat. And if you pick it up on your iPad, it just makes it a speakerphone. So, or your computer. It's always a speakerphone. I guess if you had a headset attached to your computer, it would be different, but I don't think most people do. So.
Yeah, my wife believes that I'm trying to put her away.
But Jeff, if you turn that off on your phone, then you're not going to be able to accept phone calls on your iPhone, right?
No, the iPhone cellular calls only applies to being able to use other devices connected to your phone. So iPhone cellular calls, I think the default is off. That means that your computer or your iPad won't ring. If you want to have that functionality and be able to answer calls and make calls from your other devices, you have to have cellular calls on.
On your phone.
That setting, yes. That setting has to be on.
What about the iPad?
If you do that on your phone, they're automatically connected. If you're on the same Wi-Fi network, they just work. So these devices are kind of secondary as long as that's on.
So Jeff, the default must be on, because I couldn't figure out why I don't have Yosemite.
Oh, so the default is on?
I see that mine is on, and I was wondering why my my iPad, well, I have iOS 8 on my iPad.
And it was ringing.
And the phone, but the other ones ring, but I don't have Yosemite, so if I turn this off, that was.
Your iPad won't ring if you turn it off.
If you got your volume turned down on your phone, like in the meeting here, and you have hooked to the same Wi-Fi that your iPad's on, and your phone gets a call, is it still gonna ring on the iPad?
It should. I don't think it would because it's the call coming in, but that device is turned on, your phone is on silent.
No, I'm saying, I'm sitting here right now, I got the phone turned down.
Down. Yeah,
Mine's all the way down.
It would depend on the volume.
iPad's all the way up.
Yeah, so your iPad would ring.
Oh, okay. So I gotta turn that down too.
On my time capsule, I changed the wireless to 5 gigahertz, and it made a wonderful difference in speed. But it's the same wireless network on the 2.4 or whatever it is. Do all other devices consider that being on the same network? It's on the same named network.
It's just 1 to 5. The device would probably have to be connected to that manually for this functionality, I would think.
So for like a printer, does the printer consider that the same network, or do I have to change it?
If the printer has a control panel where you can change the network, you'll see listed 5 and the 2. You'll see them there as available networks. So they're actually look like separate networks from a device standpoint. So you want to make sure they were all on the same page.
Thank you.
To make sure everything works smoothly, including AirPrint and probably the phone calls and such.
So where do I go on my iPhone to turn that iPhone cellular?
Go to Settings and then go to FaceTime.
Okay. Thank you.
That's where this control panel is. And then at the bottom, you'll see the different FaceTime emails and phone numbers they have for you. So you can uncheck any of those if you don't want to receive face calls on a certain email or phone number. Now, continuity and handoff are 2 new features. When you have iOS 8 and Yosemite installed, and you're composing an email on your computer, and you haven't finished it yet, you don't even have to save it as a draft, you'll see a little icon. On the left is the bottom of my phone screen, and do you see there's a little calendar there? That's because on my computer at that time I was creating a calendar event that I didn't quite finish. So if I would open my phone and touch that icon and slide, it would take me to that calendar event that I started on my computer, and I could finish it on my phone or iPad. On the right, you'll see that I was on a web page on my phone. That's my Macintosh bar at the bottom there, and it shows me, oh, here's the web page you were just at on your phone that you didn't close out yet. Do you want to open it on your computer? By clicking on that icon, it will open the page on my phone. Now that works right now with the mail, with calendar, messages, notes, reminders, maps, Safari, Keynote, numbers, and pages. And a third-party app called Goodreader, which I personally haven't used. But if you use any of those devices or apps on your device and your computer and you start a document in Pages, you don't even have to go to iCloud or Pages and open up the iCloud folder. You know, it just shows up down to the left of the Finder in the dock as a little icon like that. So that's what handoff and continuity are. It's more of a seamless transition between devices.
Is that another process where it's using your Wi-Fi network?
Actually, that'll use cellular too, because I've had it work when my phone wasn't on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So you don't necessarily have to be on the same network, but as long as you're connected somehow. So if you're using a cellular connection, it still works.
So theoretically, I'm asking if you hit start something on this, somebody else is looking at your iMac at home, would the continuity come through?
Yes, and they could click on that item
Okay.
and see it. So
Don't watch out for my wife.
now, messages in Yosemite, you can also, if you've ever had a group chat, like my wife's family is notorious for these group chats, and they'll send out messages. And if you, one word of warning, if you're ever in a group chat, say you receive a message from your brother, and he's also copied your other brother and your sister-in-law on it. When you reply, make sure you remember that all the people in the group see the reply. I said something disparaging about my mother-in-law in a group chat like this, and then she saw it instantly. And, you know, it was a little predicament I had to get out of. But so be careful with the group chats. But what you can do is you can, on the right, you'll see you have a Do Not Disturb option or a Leave This Conversation option. There we go.
That's another one.
But now they list them, they list all the names or most of them.
Yeah, so these four people, my wife, my sister-in-law, and my mother-in-law, were in this conversation. So I could choose to leave the conversation. I don't get any more notices. They can continue to talk to each other, but I'm out of it. Or if I'm muted, I don't get notifications, but I can still go back and look at what they're saying. So that's a Photoshop I did of my son when he was born.
Muted, that's what we're gonna find out.
He really didn't have a tattoo yet.
Is he repairing it? Jeff?
Oh, yes.
Is he repairing it?
I'm sorry?
Is he repairing it?
Oh, no, he's actually using it there.
When you say you mute it, is that the audio?
No, the Do Not Disturb means that you won't get a little banner. You know how when you're on your device, you'll get a little banner that says
Yes.
text message from Joe? You won't, if you hit mute, if you check the box, you won't see the little notifications.
Okay.
You'll still be able to see it if you go to messages, but you just won't get little banners that come down.
And you don't hear the sound either, right?
No sound, no notification at all.
So that's what we wanted.
But only for group messages.
That's just.
Oh, only for group.
Yeah, this is for groups.
But how could you delete your mother-in-law so you can say disparaging things about her?
You
without
can't.
her? Okay.
Yeah, you can't remove a member. You can just choose to leave yourself.
So ferme la bouche.
We were trying to delete audio for messages, but leave the volume up for other things. Can you do that?
Let's see, if you go to settings. Well, if you go to settings, I'm looking under sounds. There's not a choice for messages. But if you go into messages, let's see. Yeah, I don't see any settings for sound for messages. So I don't know if you can mute. Now, let me see if it's in Notification Center. Yeah, in Messages, you can change the notification sound to none under Notification Center.
Oh, don't.
So go to Notification Center, go to Messages, turn the sound off, then you won't be alerted with sounds for messages, but you would still see a banner if you choose.
Okay,
That's where you would control it,
thank you.
certainly.
Messages?
So now this is kind of nifty. If you want to record a screen from your device, you have an iPad or an iPhone with a lightning connector, you can now connect the connector with the charging sync cable in your USB port from your device. You open QuickTime, you go to File, New Movie Recording. You'll then see a little menu that you see at the bottom left that you can choose your iPhone from the camera and the microphone. And then you can record your screen. I've got a little sample here. So here's a little movie. So I'm opening my phone. I'm going to open my automatic app, which tracks my driving. So this is a recording I did from my phone. And I can look at my trip. So this was something this was a screen recording. And you'll notice that somehow it takes out the AT&T at the top. So it doesn't identify your carrier. So it's a privacy thing, I guess. But when you record, it somehow blocks out the AT&T. But this is me messing around with my phone. But since it was connected, you can do a recording. That might come in handy. It came in handy for demonstrating it anyway. But I don't know why you would want to record something, But that's a new feature. Record your screen from your iPad or iPhone. Has anyone used Apple Pay yet?
Yes.
So it's great if you haven't used it. But there's ways to remove your cards remotely via iCloud if for some reason you needed to do that, as well as how to change your default. So on the phone, go to Settings, Passbook and Apple Pay, and choose. When you scroll down, you go to Passbook and Apple Pay. See where it says Default Card at the bottom? So when you click on that, you'll be able to put a card, your default card. At first when I started using it, I thought the card on top would automatically be your default, but that's not the case. I think it goes in chronological order. I think the first card you add is the default until you go in there and change it. So if you have multiple cards, you can change the default in the Passbook settings, because the card on top is not the default unless it happened to be the first card you added, I think. Now, if you go to iCloud and you log in, and you go to the settings icon, and then you'll see devices, you can then have a choice that you see at the bottom right to remove all cards in one swoop if for some reason you needed to do that. I don't know why you would. With Touch ID enabled and everything, your phone should be pretty safe, but if something weird happened, you could do that. Now, we're going to move into some iOS 8 tips. So one of the neat things that iOS 8 has enabled, if you go to Settings, General, and Usage, you'll see a battery usage section that will tell you in the last 24 hours or 7 days which apps are using the most battery of your portable device, which can be handy. So those are my top offenders for the last 24 hours. But you'll be able to see there, if there's an app that's operating in the background or something that you really don't want operating in the background, you could then turn off location services for that app if it was something that didn't, was using the battery but you didn't need location services, for example. So that's kind of new. You can now add photos to notes. So when you're creating a note, you can tap and hold, just like you would in an email, to copy and paste. Choose Insert Photo, and then it'll take you to your camera roll and your other albums, and you can insert a photo into a note that will then sync with your computer and your other iOS devices. So if you're doing a recipe or something and you're keeping it in notes and you have a picture of the recipe, you could easily put it in now and paste a note in.
Jeff, that was really easy to do. How about if I take pictures on my iPhone and I'm going to send them to someone? I have a Huawei account and the iPhone doesn't like that. Can I change the default to like a Gmail on this phone? So that it will put the pictures in Gmail instead of...
You can change your default mail account in Gmail to Gmail.
Okay.
That would probably, if you went to Photos, but you can also change it on a case-by-case basis. If you're in Mail, if you click on your sender address, you can actually choose another address that's set up on your phone when you're composing a message. So if you want to send a photo, after you type in the person's name at the top, you'll see your name, Mine would say jeff@jeffbohr.com. If I tap on jeff@jeffbohr.com, it'll also show my Gmail and my iCloud accounts. so I could send a message out on another server. Only if you have multiple mail accounts set up on your phone, though.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but no, I'm not finding out how I could make it so if the pictures are not coming from Huawei, I want them to come from Gmail.
And what, are you just sending them from the Photos app?
Yeah.
Like you're just going to Photos and saying send?
Yeah.
You have to change your default mail account in settings. You go to mail, go to settings, go to mail, contacts, and calendars, and about halfway down, under the mail section, you'll see default account, and it will probably have the one you don't want listed. You can tap on that and select Gmail. Does that do it?
Okay, I don't know, I'll just play around.
But yeah, settings, mail, contacts, and calendars, and then go down to the mail section. You'll be able to select your default account.
Jeff, I see there's an app for notes and there's an app for reminders, and so can you go to reminders and put in a photo?
I don't think you can, but I've never tried it. Let's see.
It works great on these notes.
Yeah, notes, that was real quick.
Yeah.
You can paste, but you can't, unless you copy a photo. I don't,
Okay.
but I just pasted something in notes, or in reminders. So if I had copied a photo, I don't know if it would work, but you could definitely try that.
Then to delete it, Jeff, I just went back in and I just put cut, and it took the
Right.
photo out.
Yeah, so you can easily cut it, or you can hit the backspace. So in any app for which you can share things, like Safari or Photos, when you have the little share button, the little arrow at the bottom, if you tap the share button, you'll be able to choose from the little icons at the bottom. See under the photos, I've got iCloud Photo, Twitter, Flickr. If you hit more, you'll be able to turn on and off different social media and apps that you could share photos to, or Safari websites. So if you can change these settings for photos, and you also can customize the settings for Safari share. So say for photos, you don't want to share to LinkedIn, but on Safari you do. They each have their own customizable settings for sharing. So the way you get to those options on the right is click the More button, and then you can turn off Twitter and Facebook, for example. So it just presents less options to you, or more, depending on what kind of social media and other events you want to share photos or web pages with. Now there are more visual accessibility options. You have options to reduce transparency, so you'll see less of the background moving around when you're in menus, darken colors and reduce the white point. So all these different things will help if you have difficulty. I've recently had to start using reading glasses occasionally. With the iPhone 6, the keyboard is so much, the 6 Plus, the keyboard is big enough to where I don't have to pull them out to use my phone. But for other things, you can adjust these. And the nice thing is, when you are playing with these settings, it happens instantly in the background. So you can kind of see what effect it has when you change reduce white point or darken colors. You'll see it kind of live while you do it, so you can kind of test it. So there's a lot more, like Notification Center and Control Center. When you slide those menus up from the bottom, it'll reduce the transparency in those if that bothers you. So that's what that setting will do. Manual exposure control. So when you're taking a photo, if you tap anywhere on the screen, that'll focus at that point. You'll also see on the right a brightness icon. So do you see that little sun on top of the pig's rear end? That's actually a slider that if you drag up and down over that, it'll increase or reduce the light coming into the lens at that point. And you'll see a live function of that while you're doing it. So you'll see a live action, response of what the picture will look like. So after you tap the focus, if you tap that little slider and just slide up and down, it'll adjust the light levels of the image.
Can you increase the light levels on a sort of dark area?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it does. So you could really, it's like opening the exposure, the lens on a camera almost.
Exposure control.
Exactly, yeah. So and it's pretty good on these new ones. Now, a new section.
Exposure compensation.
Is that the exposure compensation?
A camera, it's exposure exposure compensation.
So if you've looked in your photos, when you go to the album view, you'll notice now you have a recently deleted section. So it used to be when you deleted a photo on your phone or iPad, it would just be gone. Now you have to actually empty the recent deleted section to get rid of photos, but the nice thing is you also have the chance to recover photos. So if you inadvertently deleted something, if you go to the deleted photos, recently deleted album, you can then have two options at the bottom. You can select items, and then the button will say delete or recover, but when you're in the blank view with 6 items listed, you can either delete all or recover all in a section. If you tap on one, it'll allow you to recover 1 or 2 at a time. So that's a new feature, and if you've been getting rid of a lot of pictures, you'll find that they're still in recently deleted in that album. You have to scroll down to see it. But if you haven't paid attention, you have to empty that again, kind of like your mail trash. So when you get rid of mail, it goes to the trash can. You have to empty your trash can occasionally. And the same thing with photos now. Now, if you have certain third-party apps, this works with both photos and videos. So if you choose at the bottom of each menu, you have a crop button, a hue button, a brightness button, and there's a little menu there with a circle and 3 dots in it. That's more options. When you click that, I have Camera Plus installed, which is another camera app that has a lot more editing features. So that comes up as an option to edit the photo rather than just using the pictures that iPhoto has in it. Now, if you take a video and you click edit on the video, you might see apps come up like iMovie and Super 8 if you have a different video editing apps that will let you take a video from your camera roll and open it and manipulate it in another app, and then it will save it back to your camera roll. So when you go to the More button here, it will give you options just like it did for the social media options earlier. You can turn on different apps that are capable of editing photos here or movies.
Jen,
Yes.
they have, you can no longer use the iPhoto app in iOS 8.
Oh, I hadn't even tried that yet.
You can't use it, and there's a lot more editing ability in
Capabilities.
iPhoto than there is in Photos.
Right. In Camera Plus, which is still only 99 cents, which is the one shown on the screen, has great control over editing.
Because basically, if you want to do what you used to be able to do in iPhoto,
You'd almost have to
probably
get a
need a
third-party app.
third-party app
Right.
to do it.
That's a good point. I hadn't tried that.
If a picture comes out upside down, there's no way to right side up it.
Yes, if you use the crop key, it will take you at the bottom of the photo to the left. You'll see a little arrow, and you'll be able to rotate the photo using that little arrow. So start out like you're going to crop it, but then when you get to that crop menu, you'll see a little arrow down at the bottom left that will let you rotate the picture. And here's an example of the 3D flyover tour on the iOS device. So if you go to New York, for example, on my phone there on the left, you see the little menu that says 3D flyover tour of New York, start. If you click start, it will kind of do this on your device or your computer and take you to a little flyover and identify little landmarks. And that'll work on maps under both Yosemite and the iOS devices. And that's another place where that little lightning connection screen recording came in handy to make this little video. So, I don't know how useful it is, but if you're doing something. Well, thank you. That's the end of that. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Have you had the experience of downloading Yosemite on 2009 iMacs?
It should be within the parameters, because I know I just did it
I
on
know it's
2007. It would depend on the memory mostly. As long as you have at least 4 gigabytes of memory, you should be safe. If you have anything less, I wouldn't recommend it.
Does it work as well on that as it does on the newer computer?
I know on the 2007 iMacs, they each had only 4 gigabytes of memory. That was the maximum they could hold. They had no issues. that I heard about the first couple of days anyway. So I don't think, the memory would be the biggest obstacle. But make sure if you only have 2 gigabytes of memory, which was common in those days, you want to make sure you upgraded it to at least 4. I mean, upgrade it to the max if you can, if possible, because that can never hurt you. Jerry?
Excuse me. I find that I'm running on my iMac, it's hard drive, not a flash memory.
Right.
It takes almost 45 seconds to start up, very slow. On the club laptop, which is got a solid state drive, it probably is ready to go in 10 seconds.
And I have the combination drive on my iMac, the hybrid drive, and it starts up really fast.
Okay.
So it must just be the SATA drives that still spin. It could be a little slower, which is,
Because, like, the last app that comes up is Dropbox. Dropbox takes most of the time to get started.
to sync up and show up.
Yeah.
And that could be, that's part of the hardware, I bet. That's got to be. Because on the other devices, like you mentioned, and even on my drive, it's fast.
Yeah.
I made a delightful accidental discovery on the Plus.
Yes.
One of my major dislikes in iOS was that you had to drag the cursor with your finger.
Oh,
You couldn't use the arrows.
right.
You can.
Oh, really?
If you use the 6 Plus in the horizontal mode, on the extended keyboard, you've got your 2 arrows there. They look like brackets.
Right.
But they're not brackets, they move the cursor.
Is that in mail or?
It's, I don't know, I was typing, probably mail.
Let me try here.
On the right-hand side,
I see them, but I don't know if it's, let me go down to here. Oh, yeah, so yeah, if you're in the midst of text, it will actually let you go left and right, like the arrow keys on your
you can
keyboard.
move the cursor with those arrows, left and right.
Now, another neat tip I just learned as well, when you're in messages on your phone, if someone sends you a photo in a message, if you click and hold on it, your options used to be delete it or copy it. Now, if you tap on the photo that you received in a text message and hold, one of the options will be save, where it used to be you'd have to tap on the photo, it would open in the next window, you'd have to hit the little button, save to camera roll. So that's a new feature in iOS 8 that I just discovered. Tap and hold on a message image attachment. So a picture that you received in a text message, and you'll see a save option that puts it directly in your camera roll without having to go to the next screen.
I noticed on my iPad, and I think it's mostly on Safari, when you're trying to back to a former location on the internet, sometimes I can tap, 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 and have no luck. Other times it's just as crisp as can be. Is that a function of?
So it's the iCloud backup or iCloud backup?
No, this is going back to a previous screen.
Oh, back to a previous window.
Right, a previous window. Sometimes I can tap that reverse, you know.
Would it be the internet? Would it be Comcast, do you think?
It could be. I wondered if.
I would think that would be your provider, an issue with the provider, whether it's a DSL or a cable line, than the computer, because the computer will kind of store a cache of these, but if anything's changed, it'll revert usually. But I would think that would be a provider, and when in doubt, I would restart the computer. If something like that happened, to see if that solved it. It could be a number of things, but I would think it would be your internet provider rather than anything else. Huh?
Thanks for the tip on saving. It also works with third-party apps. I have Group Me, and I did a lot of photos on that.
Oh, so that it works
Saves it to my camera.
with another messaging service?
That was a really good tip, yeah.
Yeah, that was. I found that by mistake, but it's a time saver rather than have to go to the next screen and click, 2 clicks. It's 1 click. So, any other questions or?
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Do you do anything with iMovie?
iMovie? Yes.
I've just upgraded it, but I'm trying to get it so I can move from iMovie into Final Cut Drive.
Okay?
And I do the double click and whatever, that's supposed to get something to change, and I discovered right in the middle of it, things were freezing, I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until last night when the computer wouldn't shut down automatically that I discovered that Preview or QuickTime were open. QuickTime is an option yet, right? Does it come with Final Cut?
Well, QuickTime is installed on your computer with the operating system.
So there's both the regular and the Pro?
Right, well, the QuickTime Pro used to be a purchase years ago. I think now there's just one QuickTime, but if you have the Pro, it's carried over from a prior
So I've got some conflict.
machine or something. Yeah, because the QuickTime Pro, I don't think it's been offered for a few years now.
Okay.
Because now the QuickTime is pretty enhanced, that it had most of the Pro features built in. But if you still have QuickTime Pro installed, it's carried over, and that could be causing a conflict.
I was especially interested in your comment about the systems that are available in the App Store, because I could not find 10 point, the one to replace 10.75, and I know that I have a 1900N for a video card that they had a lot of problems with, but Apple replaced them. But it said on that it was the video cards why you couldn't bring computers forward.
Right.
Is there some place I can look that up and figure out what system was the last system I could use my Android on?
If you go to Apple has tech specs listed.
Okay.
If you go to the bottom of an Apple page, there'll be a link for, I forget what it's called, specs or something, and you'll be able to dig into the minimum requirements
Okay.
for each operating system. You kind of have to check one and then check the next.
But I can't even find the system after
After 7? After 10.7?
7.5. I can't even find the systems. And I'm trying to figure out if they're blocked or you can't hook them up.
You know, I don't know if you can still download them, but I mean, you can certainly get a copy. I mean, I still have copies because they stay on your computer, basically, the installation. You can make a disk or something if you needed one.
Okay.
But I would say, take my card. My card's on the table.
Yeah.
Shoot me an email and I can reply with some ideas. And I'll tell you where to go. I'll send you a link to that site
Okay.
specifically. I don't think there's a grid anywhere that shows, but I think you can look at each one individually and look at the specs for the builds and see which one video card is the limit for that.
Okay.
Huh?
Question maybe between you and Jerry on Preview. Jerry had posted some comment on the forum and said that they broke Preview because of the annotation. Are you still unhappy with Preview under Yosemite, Jerry? Or did that answer your question?
The answer is yes. I still think that they messed up Preview. For instance, I mean, this is minor stuff, but it used to be that if you wanted to draw an arrow, you would select an arrow and you would draw, and it would map that. Now when you want to do an arrow, you click on an arrow, it's in the middle of your screen, and then you have to grab it and move it to where you want.
It's like Keynote.
So here's Preview. I'm going to try to see what happens here. So here's an arrow key.
It's like Keynote. That's how it works. There you go.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, it used to be you could draw it from where you
Can
where
you
you
still
want it.
tilt
Now,
it? Can you tilt it? How you do that? No.
you can modify.
So it's just the initial placement?
Initial placement is in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, and you can modify it? Oh, so yeah.
So you modify the lane and
Oh yeah, I'm just the issue is I knew where I wanted it, and I would draw it there. Now it goes, and I have to move it.
right.
They're trying to make it consistent with Keynote. Because that's what you do in Keynote. Is you get, it appears in the middle of the screen and then you move where you want.
That's right. But this, I mean, if you grab that green in the middle, grab the green in the middle, Jeff, and pull down on it. In the middle.
The green
dot.
dot.
Green dot.
Oh, this. So that's how you can angle it. Interesting.
I think there's something about the old dog.
We use these all the time. Is the rectangle different, or what is the annotate rectangle?
As as I said, it used to be that you could hold down the option key and get a square to start off with. And now I can only get a rectangle, and if I want to make a square, then it's up to me to have, not to have a shaky hand.
Oh, Jerry, the trick about that circle is the shift key now.
Shift key.
And so that
Thank
if you draw an oval, if you hold down the shift key, it makes it an exact circle.
Okay.
So that's the trick. It used to be the option key.
The rectangle, it comes up as a square.
The shift key on a rectangle will change it from a oblong rectangle to an actual square. And it scales it.
Shift key.
So the shift key will,
Missy, did you get your question answered about changing from one operating system?
Yeah.
You did? Okay.
yeah, the question was, has anybody downgraded to iOS 7 after installing iOS 8?
I couldn't do it, I tried.
I tried.
I know that, I think there's a way, I haven't seen it
You
yet.
know, it seems to me that as though the benefits of being in iOS 8 outweigh the benefits of it being slowed down.
But you're still not getting all the benefits because of the slowness. And you're certainly eligible for an upgrade.
I have not noticed, I have an iPad 2, and although I don't use it much, and I certainly don't do games or anything like that, but there are a few things that I've checked. I haven't noticed that it's no, if it's 2 seconds slower, that doesn't matter to me. But
On my iPad too, I went to iOS 8 and it takes over a minute to boot up now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
iOS 8?
Yeah.
Oh, from power off.
From what?
From power off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.